Lance versus Rick, 6.1. I'll do it again.
All right, so I finished the drawing, and I've sprayed it, I've coated it with a few things, and now we're going to go to paint. Spent a lot more time on the drawing than I normally would, but we figured we'd take our time. And now it's time to move into oil paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start mixing colors by matching them against his skin. And I'm only going to do his forehead, see how that works out. So, Rick, you said some things last week that I was kind of miffed about, because in our zeal to cover topics, we just sort of went over some things that I thought were really important, and you made some points that I didn't get a chance to refute. So I'm going to bring them up now and see how you feel about it.
Is this the Hillary and the uranium thing? 'Cause
yes, it is.
last night you did a very courteous thing. You said that you were going to bring this up and gave me a heads up so I could prepare. Though we've tried to do this without much in the way of preparation, so it's spontaneous, but you let me prepare. So
Well, there's two ways we can do this thing. We can just say that we're a couple of average guys that are learning about the world from casual experience with the news. And that would keep it very pure. But the problem is that sometimes things are mentioned, and I think I feel compelled to sort of research them.
Hey guys, before you do that, can we see the paint? See what you're doing there real quick?
Oh, well, I'm just mixing paint. There's nothing less interesting. Okay, so I'm mixing up a basic flesh tone, but it won't really get interesting until I match it against his skin.
Okay, thanks.
No, don't wrinkle your forehead. So this is a nice color for the highlights, but it's not going to be good for the midtones. And I'm going to start with the midtones. But anyway, part of the reason was that I was incredulous when you told everybody that they should just look up Snopes.com, and they would find out that really nothing bad happened in the uranium deal, and and everything was just fine if I read that, or at least if our massive audience read that.
well, I'll agree with you that it's. I mean, it's not the most complicated thing in the world, but it's not simple enough to be summarized really. If you really want to confuse yourself and learn more about it, you should Google it, and then you should read like 4 or 5 different articles
Let me finish my point. Okay. I actually was so curious about what the hell could be said in Snopes.com that could possibly paint this in a good light and make Hillary seem like a reasonable, nice person, that I read the article.
No pun intended?
It's very brief, and it leaves out everything, but it does say one thing. It said that it said nothing happened. It's all an exaggeration by the crazy right, and that they have to admit that a guy named Frank, now I forget his name, Frank Juka or Frank.
the guy who gave like 31 million.
Yeah,
at
he
some
ended up
point.
giving 140 mil. Frank Justa, I think it's Justa, gave $140 million to the Clinton Foundation, and they just throw that out there. They said, but there's nothing wrong with that. And then it said that. And then the article went on to say that. Well, I don't remember, but I do remember thinking, well, isn't that strange that a guy gave $140 million to the Clinton Foundation and expected nothing back? So I read up about Frank Justra and the uranium deal, and it turns out that he started a company called Uranium One that got massively valuable contracts from countries that he and Bill Clinton would travel to. And, according to the article that you told us to look up, Snopes.com, what happened was after Frank, I'm going to call him Frank Juster right now, although I might be off by
Nobody
by a
cares.
sentence,
It's a big.
by a vowel. Anyways, but the point is, he would go. It said that he never got anything out of it because he
Left the company in 2007.
Yes, thank you. So you read the same article. Well, it turns out that there's no evidence that he left the company. He actually just he said that he left the company, but nobody really knows whether he left the company since he never gave any paperwork. There's still Bloomberg is still waiting for the paperwork to prove it. And so he said it, and in fact, even if he did leave the company, the guy that took over for him, a guy named Ian Telfair, gave millions to the Clinton Foundation afterwards. Not as many millions, and his company ended up becoming one of the biggest companies in the world, if not the biggest, with uranium.
All right, so
Wait, there's more.
I know there's more, but let me jump in.
All right.
The favorite thing that I found out when I read up on this last night is that the uranium that the American uranium that we supposedly gave to Russia,
Yes.
you need a license to export that stuff.
Uh-huh.
They never had a license. You can't take. They may own the uranium as part of a bigger corporate structure, but they're not allowed to take the uranium out of the U.S.
Yeah, now that's the thing I forgot to look up.
Well, the deal is, all right,
because frankly, I thought it was absurd.
but it's not
Why-
absurd.
Why would a
because,
company have uranium that they can't sell?
Because Uranium One is apparently a fairly substantial company that has a lot of deals that cross borders. But it's like Exxon, but with uranium. And the articles I read said that people could not really give a shit about American uranium. That really the wheeling and dealing was to get access to much more uranium in Kazakhstan.
Yes, well, that's what I read too, and he got that after going to originally Uranium One, the company, hardly existed. There was no Uranium One. It was just a very tiny little sort of name.
Rosneft. It's almost my name. I should own that fucking
Okay,
company.
and then what happened was he made this. He went to Kazakhstan with Bill Clinton, and they ended up getting the deal for the uranium, and suddenly Uranium One became massive. And by the way, there's another point here too, and that is because uranium is such a hot commodity, it's one of those things where just owning a lot of it, even if you're not transporting it, gives you leverage. In other words, it's how much. What matters is how much the whole world owns of this stuff, not just what you do with it. It's I'll put it this way. It's sort of like if you own most of the gold in the world.
Well, are you talking about cornering the market? Which
Yeah,
people
basically that's what the Russians wanted to do because they have a lot of uranium and we have less than they do. And then there's Kazakhstan, and then there's, I believe, a country in South America that Frank Juster also got because of his connections with Clinton. And anyway, the idea is that the Russians want to control uranium in the world.
So, which leads me to a basic question.
Yes.
It seems obvious that you don't want to sell uranium to Russia, but
Yes.
why, in your mind, do you not want to sell uranium to Russia?
You obviously have a trap coming from this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm not done. I just wanted to say that the problem with this the uranium thing is that once they, okay. All right, I'll answer your question first. Obviously, it's a controlled stuff that you can make atom bombs with, nuclear bombs with. And now why are you going to tell me it's not a problem?
All right, well, here's the trap.
Yes.
Starting, do you know who, I'm kind of interested to know how much you know about nukes.
All right, wait.
But
Let me just finish. I just wanted to say, not only did Hillary Clinton approve this deal.
maybe.
No. You told me last week that Hillary didn't approve it, or that, your argument was that there were lots and lots of people that were involved in approving it.
Yeah, and there were 9 federal agencies, with the State Department being one of those 9, and it may have been like a junior employee.
That was Hillary's argument.
Like,
But-
can you show me those brushes?
No, I can't do everything. You'll see when I start using them. But I need to get a stick. Okay. So anyway, it wasn't just Hillary though, because it was actually worse. It turns out that those other federal agencies that had to approve it were also members of the Obama cabinet. So not only did the Secretary of State get involved with selling uranium to Russia, but so did the rest of the Obama cabinet. So it wasn't just her. And in fact, because the rest of them had to get involved, don't wrinkle your forehead, turn your head this way more, thank you. Because the rest of them had to get involved, that means Obama knew about it too. That means the President of the United States
Maybe.
knew, well, he had to. Are you telling me that there was a convening of his entire cabinet to approve this deal, but Obama didn't know anything about it?
It could have, I don't know if there was a convening. You don't know if there was a convening.
Well, but there had to be all of the members. It wasn't just low-level bureaucrats. It had to be everyone in the Obama administration.
Well, you're saying it had to be,
at,
but
at
there's-
secretary level that had to agree to this by law. It wasn't just Hillary. It was all of them had to agree to it, and they did. So what we're talking about is, you're going to tell me it's okay to sell uranium to Russia, or to have them control uranium in the world, and I don't know, how do you justify that, Rick?
Well, for one thing, not only we're not a big uranium producer. We don't have that much uranium. We
Okay.
had to make, in World War II, we had to make deals with like Belgium and stuff, and who, I guess there's uranium in what was the Belgian Congo. And just, it's uranium, we're just, we have to go elsewhere for it.
Okay.
And that includes in this slew of deals that this, selling some of our uranium to Uranium One. Also, we're buying uranium from Russia from their decommissioned nuclear warheads. So it's not that we're just saying, here, take our uranium. We're also saying, hey, let's have some of your uranium, and we'll use that in our nuclear reactors. But
Turn your head more that way.
okay.
Thank you.
So I'm curious as to how much you know about nukes in general, just for fun. Like, do you know the difference between an A bomb and an H bomb?
Yes. An atom bomb, I believe, split the plutonium atom, whereas the H bomb split the hydrogen atom and is infinitely more powerful. And the
Close.
reason because hydrogen is a more ubiquitous element.
Well, the deal is that
And now
there-
we
there-
use something called uranium-235.
yeah.
And we have to make that.
Well, you have to separate it out.
Yeah. None of which, by the way, matters in,
No,
in,
not particularly, but like
in helping
it's-
her from getting away with the most treasonous deal in the history of the United States. I mean, well, I just don't understand you. How do you explain this away? The fact that the Russians get some of ours? Oh, great. That comforts me. Now I'm really feeling
No,
good.
And we get some of their.
No, they're not supposed to get any, Rick. In the weird, sick, liberal
all
world
right.
you live in,
No,
I guess
let's
that's
talk about the
okay.
weird, sick, liberal world. Now, have you ever gone to an anti-nuclear protest and been a counter-protester, shouting more nukes, less kooks, and spilling fake nuclear waste on the ground to make everybody freak out?
I wish I had, but go ahead, Rick.
Well, I've done that. Rocky Flats in Golden, near Golden, Colorado, we used to make nuclear triggers. The little spheres at the center of, I believe, of plutonium weapons, which work through implosion, I believe. They have a little thing in the little balls of other metals and substances at the center that amplify the neutron reactions and that help make for a really nice explosion. And the main plant for doing this, making the little juicers, was Rocky Flats, 15, 20 miles out of Boulder. And my frat brothers and I, because we were assholes, there was a big protest outside Rocky Flats. We thought, oh, let's just go get everybody riled. Well, I didn't come up with the idea, but one of my frat brothers did. Let's become counter-protesters just to be jerks. And so we went out there and we spilled fake nuclear waste in the middle of the anti-nuke protesters just to make people get angry at us. So
That warms my heart, but I still can't understand why you think it's okay that Hillary approved this deal. And
Well,
that
let's
her
go back
husband-
into history.
And that her husband then got $140 million for his organization, and that's not the end of it. After that, Russian oligarchs paid him to come to Russia after the deal was done, where he got paid $500,000 to do a speech. Now, why would Bill Clinton get $500,000 to do a speech in Russia?
Well, what happens with, I don't know, conservative arguments, liberal arguments, but as a liberal, I'll say it happens more with conservatives, is you have a big, semi-confusing, not particularly, a big ball of facts.
Yeah.
And it's unwieldy.
No, it's very wieldy. There were laws, actually, there are laws against getting money from other countries. And in fact, Hillary Clinton was made to sign a paper when she got hired as Secretary of the Treasury that she would not accept funds from other countries. So what she did was they funneled the money through the foundation and through the speeches. I mean, you can't get any more bribery, more obvious case of bribery, and
Well,
furthermore,
you're constructing a lot of that.
well, what do you mean I'm constructing it? They got the first installment of $30 million about 3 months after the deal was done. And this guy, Ian Telfair, who's the president of Uranium One, was contributing money all along. I mean, a guy contributes money to your foundation after you set up a deal with Kazakhstan. Your own husband goes there.
All right,
They have a meeting with the president. Suddenly, uranium is being transferred from Kazakhstan to Uranium One. Then you get $140 million contributed to your foundation? When that's not bribery?
If you look at the timeline,
That's the timeline. I just gave it to you in order. How can it be anything but a bribe?
because there's a bunch of cherry picking of facts.
If I gave your wife $140 million and then you wound up with a company that had a uranium deal after going with Bill Clinton to Kazakhstan, it's a bribe. It's nothing more than a bribe. How could it be anything else?
Now, you say that there's no proof that what's-his-face left uranium.
Yeah, he just says. He says he did, but there's no proof. And by the way,
And you also conflate, and I know that I would assume, we haven't had this argument, but I would assume that you'll say that money that goes to the Clinton Foundation is essentially the same as giving money to the Clintons.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because do you know that now that she lost the election, the Clinton Foundation is basically washed up? They're shuttering their doors. They haven't received hardly any donations at all. And you know why? Because she doesn't have any power. There's no point in giving her the money.
That may be. It also may be that she got so much shit for during the election for the Clinton Foundation that she just said fuck it, and the Clintons said fuck it. We're all right. We think we did a lot of good with the Clinton Foundation. We took in a lot of money, we did a lot of good, but all we got was shit for it, and fuck it.
Do you want to know what? Okay, both of us are speculating. I'm speculating that people assume that because she's not in power, there's no reason to give them money.
Well, that seems like hold on. That seems like a reasonable speculation, but we don't know because we're speculating.
We don't know. We're speculating. But by the way, even the Clinton Foundation. Do you know that there are protesters in Haiti? Because after the earthquake in Haiti, Bill took charge of receiving donations to save the people in Haiti. The Clinton Foundation got the most of any foundation to try to help the Haitians. And do you know the Haitians are protesting, have been protesting ever since then, because many of them are saying that they never even got the money?
I've heard something about Haiti, so
yeah. Well, I've heard a lot about it. You can look it up.
All right.
After you go home, you can find that there are people saying what happened to all those millions of dollars that were supposed to go to Haiti. And by the way, I know for a fact that Chelsea Clinton receives a $900,000 a year salary to head a charitable foundation. Does that make any sense? What is your justification? Let me ask you this. Your candidate, the woman you voted for, her husband goes to Kazakhstan with this guy, and then the next week he gets a deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and then he gives what ends up being in installments $140 million to the Clinton Foundation. Doesn't that raise an eyebrow for a liberal? Don't you think there's something
that raises an
odd?
eyebrow, but like I said, this is one of those big old balls of facts and speculation where you can construct your pattern of fact.
Well, it's called a quid pro quo, and it's illegal.
If indeed that's
no, it's illegal.
Yeah,
this is it. Look, if I was a senator, okay, and I started a foundation, the Richland Foundation, and then somebody came in and gave millions of dollars to the Richland Foundation, and then I voted on a bill that helped those people, then that would be called a quid pro quo. It's illegal.
If that's how it works.
But that's what happened, Rick.
Yeah, you just say that.
Because nobody admits to why they did it. Bill's not going to come out and say, I did this so that I could get the money. That's why it's not necessary for you to figure out the motive of the person legally. It just has to be shown that it happened in time. Because no one would ever admit it. So they call it a quid pro quo.
I don't want to argue about this aspect of it because I'm not well versed in this aspect.
Okay, well, I'm not a lawyer,
but
our politicians aren't allowed to do things like this. And you're not the slightest bit concerned. You think it's just a coincidence.
I'm not saying it's just a coincidence, but I'm saying that I'm not well versed in it, and it's less straightforward. There's more stuff going on with all this stuff.
How could it be more straightforward? The company gets the deal after contributing the money or shortly or within the time frame of giving the money to the Clinton Foundation. And she's the one that approved the deal along with other members of the Obama cabinet. And it's a vital national resource. I don't care if we buy some uranium from Russia. I want all the uranium we can get. We need that stuff.
Why?
So we can make nuclear bombs with it. And so that we can have nuclear power. And furthermore, we don't want the Russians to be able to use it. For all the reasons necessary to keep Americans safe, we do not want the Russians to control our uranium. And your candidate that you voted for wanted them to have it. How can you justify
How
that?
many nuclear warheads do we have?
I think we've got about 1,500, but no one knows for sure.
That's pretty. Last night I read up, and yeah, nobody knows for sure. And it could be 1,500, it could be 1,750, it could be 1,900. And then if you include weapons that could be made that aren't currently connected to a missile but could be made usable, it goes up to about 4,000 total. And the numbers are roughly equivalent between the US and Russia. But the big numbers for me are what was the maximum number of warheads we ever had?
Well, we've decreased them a lot since the SALT treaties.
Yeah.
I mean, it was out of control. We had so many.
We peaked at about 33,000 nuclear warheads.
Okay.
The Russians peaked at about 45,000.
Okay.
And which is ridiculous because it only takes, a few hundred nukes, if that, especially H-bombs, to, pretty much devastate the world.
Right. But actually, that's not what I heard. I mean, what I heard was that there was a concern about something called a nuclear winter,
Yeah.
where if you set off enough of these, they would affect the planet's weather. And but I knew a scientist that was involved in it.
It might take more than a couple hundred nukes.
Well, the
but-
point I'm trying to make is that he told me that if you set them all off, you would blow up something the size of North Africa. Anyway, what is your point?
Well,
That it's
imagine
okay?
imagine like a situation in which Russia and or the Soviet Union and the U.S. and sometime in the 70s
Yes.
each fired 100 nukes at each other.
Okay.
There's no way that the world would be left anything but devastated, regardless of whether you get nuclear winter or not. It's some kind of even if in exchanging a total of 200 nukes, you only kill 50 or 60 million people. The rest of the world is still crazily fucked up. Everybody, it's trauma to the world. The stock markets collapse. There's political insurrection. There's, it's an entire planet running around with their heads chopped off.
All of this, okay, here's the deal. The reason they kept developing more and more nukes was not because they wanted to kill lots of people. It's because they wanted to destroy any area that the Russians could have a military installation and their cities if they needed to. So in other words, the Russians could just keep building military installations spread all over their country, and if any of them survive, they could send a nuke at us.
It's a variation on mutual assured destruction.
Well, you want to have, you don't want in a confrontation to shoot off all yours and have nothing left. If they have some sort of outpost somewhere out there with weapons in it that can finish you off, you don't want them to have more than you do.
But that thinking is kind of crazy.
No, but it isn't, because what happens is this: liberals go nuts and they start saying, "Well, everyone's going to die anyway. Only a madman would plan for this." Well, no, you have to plan for it. Because if you don't, then if you say, like, this thinking carried to an extreme.
Well, hold on, because you're characterizing my thinking, and that's not the deal.
All right, go
You
ahead.
can see where the post-World War II, Cold War, was like the heyday of game theory. And you can see where the thinking came from, which is, it's just the extension of all of a sudden you have these new super powerful weapons, and you kind of have to do the math. And this strategy was,
Don't wrinkle your forehead.
okay, was kind of a natural outgrowth of the political climate at the time. But because we've reduced our nuclear stockpiles by 95% and more,
Yes.
is a certain indication that that neither side found that satisfactory.
All this is a massive excuse for Hillary to sell incredibly important national security elements to our greatest enemy?
Well, my point is, we have a shitload of uranium. Now, we could use more, but we're also getting uranium from them.
We're also part of the reason it isn't even what we're going to do with it. We don't want them to have any more. In a perfect world, Russia would never have any uranium.